Hi everyone, my name is Tweak and I'm the administrator for an anime and faith website called Beneath the Tangles, and I'm here again today with ADR director and voice actress Caitlin Glass. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. Caitlin has been watching through the first season of Haikyuu for us and been giving us her thoughts on it, and now you've completed the first season.
I loved it. It was so much fun.
Very good. So you did ask your followers for some questions, so this is kind of a Q&A today. Well, I'll throw some questions at you that they've asked, and you can go ahead and answer them for us.
Okay.
So I will
Fingers
start out.
crossed.
I'll start out with Kelsey, who asks what your first impression of the show was and what your impression of it is now.
Okay. I think my first impression of the show was that it was, it's such a small word, but it was good. Like you can tell from just one episode what the quality of the show going forward is going to be. And I thought, oh, this will be a good one. It immediately, just the way all the characters were portrayed in one episode, I was interested in what their backstories were. After just one episode, I found the animation to be very compelling. And I think that it did not fall away from that the entire season. It only got better with each introduction of a new character. I went, well, what's their deal? Like you want to know everything about everybody that you meet. And it's pretty amazing how they being the animators, keep you so engaged with something that's just a ball going back and forth, but it was really amazing to watch them play, and just to see how the animators captured like the human form in motion. Particularly there's some players that stands out, I think, even more than others. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and there's so many reasons to watch the show, and I think the characters, that's one, the story is another, and then the look of it would be a third for me.
John kind of had a related question, which was, did you have any apprehension going in because it was about volleyball?
That's a great question, John. A little bit, because admittedly, we talked about this in our first interview. I don't know much about sport in general. I'm not an athletic person. I remember not liking having to play volleyball back in like PE or whatever, and junior high and high school, because it was scary to me and it hurt. So I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. But then I thought, well, I'm not actually playing. I'm just watching cartoon characters play. So let's go for it. Plus, I knew how popular it was and how popular it has been for many years. So I'm like, there must be something to it.
Well, yeah, definitely. We did talk about how you enjoy sports anime. You mentioned the kind of bodies in motion in Haikyuu, and it reminds me of Free, which you worked on.
Yeah.
That's part of what's really I don't know how to put it, but you're kind of subconsciously taking that in and not necessarily realizing it while you're watching it, but the way it's animated is so great, and it just feels so true to form.
Exactly. There are times when I forget that I'm looking at something that's animated. It's particularly when they're showing characters serving. What's his name? Oikawa from Seijo. Like, that's amazing. Every single time he serves, I'm like, look at that. Somebody drew that. That's awesome. Or the second ED, second closing theme. It's just Kageyama doing stuff. I'm like, that is, wow, how'd they do that? Like, I don't know if it's any sort of rotoscoping or if they had filmed a person doing all of that and then, animated it based on, I was like, holy crap, so great.
Yeah, speaking of a couple of those characters that you mentioned, the big question, of course, we received was, who's your favorite character? So
who's your favorite character?
Everyone wants to know.
I know, everyone wants to know. So in our first interview, like my initial, I like that guy, was Tanaka, and that's still true. I still love it. I just really like the loud guys. But then a contender would be Asahi, because I also like that character type. He's just sort of big and gentle, I guess. And I like his struggle a lot. That it spoke to me very much, that he is good at a thing and then comes to a place where he isn't naturally good anymore, you
Mhm.
know, like suddenly there's some opposition that he cannot overcome with ease. And so he feels like a failure and he stops doing the thing that he loves. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how often do we do that in life? Maybe not everybody does that, but I have felt that way in my own life. When you have certain things that come naturally to you and you are just very good at them whenever you start, and then you take an interest in something else and you're not naturally good at it. And
Mhm.
so I didn't continue to pursue it. And for me, it would be, I wanted to play the guitar like desperately when I was probably 20. And
Mhm.
I thought, well, I already sing, I already read music. This should
Mhm.
be
Yeah.
so easy.
Mhm.
No, no. And I barely played for a while and I didn't keep up with it. And that makes me really sad. Like that was a long time ago. That was over 15 years ago. I've picked up the ukulele now. And I think as more of an adult and perhaps more disciplined, and if I had the time
Mhm.
and wanted to pick it up again, I think I could be better at it. But that seems like a silly comparison versus what Asahi goes through. But immediately that's what I thought of. Like how often do we walk away from something just because we fail at it once, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's funny because when I was 22, I picked up the guitar and I had a musical background. I was like, I can do this. And I quit about 6 months later. It was really hard.
That is, it's deceptively difficult.
But Asahi really is I think a very relatable character, and there's something to be said about maturity, right? For him, of course, he's still in high school, and it's only a few months' time, but it felt like he needed to mature a little bit and fail, right, to get to where he needed to go, and of course the support of his
Mhm.
teammates, and just like you and maybe me, we needed maybe a few more years than that, and maybe a few more failures in life, but
Yeah.
that's a lot of times what drives us forward into growing as people. So. Yeah, no,
Mhm.
he's great. I did want to read this one question since you brought up Tanaka, and I just thought it was funny. Who's your favorite character, and why is it Tanaka? So I love that one. So I just wanted to read that. The Speaking of characters, still, I like this question that Go Yang and Jeannie Seahorn both asked, which was, which character would you want to hang out with in real life? A little bit different.
Oh, who would I want to hang out with? I think I would want to hang out with Hinata. Actually, he seems like a lot of fun. Like he's just like a big goober, and
Mhm.
he's so cute. I think that would be great. Who else?
I
Maybe
think I
like
can only take short bursts of Hinata, though. Every day in practice for hours on end, that would be rough.
maybe. Oh shoot! Suddenly, all their names are getting mixed up
Yeah,
in my head.
yeah.
The other setter, is it Sugawara?
Oh, Suara, yeah.
Is that his name?
Suara? Yeah, I mean,
Like
I
the
love him,
really
but yeah,
lovely
other
looking
names are
one.
getting mixed up. Yes.
Oh,
No, he's terrific.
sorry guys, a lot of characters. He seems like a nice dude to
Very
hang
cool.
out with. They all seem great, to be honest, but Tonica might be a bit extra to hang out with. I feel like, yo, keep it down. But
Sugawara, by the way.
yes,
Sugawara.
that's it,
There
Sugawara.
we go.
Mhm.
I don't know if this question is necessarily appropriate for a married woman, but Lama Namana just simply asks, husbando?
Husbando, definitely Asahi. Asahi.
He's a
He's
good
real
looking guy too.
pretty. He's real pretty. I do not like long hair on men in
You
real
don't like the
life.
man bun he puts it in either?
Mm,
No,
mm-mm,
no.
no, but he's still real pretty.
He is. Two particular characters really got a lot of response from your followers, so I do want to ask you your thoughts on them specifically. Um,
Sure.
just, just really simply, Ender Homie asks, "What are your thoughts on Nishinoya?"
Wow, what a cool character. I
Hmm.
really, really love his drive and his focus. He's amazing. And I also love how, as talented as he never rests on his laurels. Like he has confidence in his skill and knows what he can accomplish, but he's not arrogant. And he still, I think, believes the game could go any way at any moment. And
Hmm.
so he's in the moment all the time. And I really love that about him. He's so cool. He's so cool. And I found myself, the longer the show went on, the more I got used to watching them play and watching these rallies. If something bad was about to happen in my brain, I'd be like, where's Nishinoya? Like, I knew that he was going to be there, or perhaps he could come in and help in this situation. He's really cool. Really cool.
A lot of folks also asked what your thoughts were, and we touched upon this just briefly last time on Tsukishima.
Which one's that? Sorry. Tsuki with the
tall one with the glasses.
Yeah, thanks.
And I should mention that he really hasn't had a big role yet in season 1. So this is kind of what are your thoughts right now?
Right. Folks who send in questions might obviously know more than I do because they've seen more than I have. He's the most intriguing character to me because we don't know a lot about him, but they've just planted little seeds here and there. Enough to make me go, what's his deal? I'm very curious. I thought it was great that we got to see him play some in this tournament and how he interacted with Kageyama and how Kageyama had to adapt. And I think the word the show uses is evolve as a player to suit the needs of his team, and how Suki is different than anybody else, but Kageyama picked up on it pretty fast. Like he's interesting. I think intriguing is the best word I can think of. And I look forward to learning more about him.
Absolutely. This is a question I really like. Olivia asks, if you could voice any of the characters, who would it be?
Oh, that's weird because they're all dudes.
We've got, oh gosh, by this point we only have one girl, right? Basically.
Yeah. Yes, there's the other girl who I'm sorry that I can't remember names, and she's the captain of the girls' team.
That's true.
And she you see her at the beginning talking to Daichi a lot. And
I guess we could throw Hinata in there too. I mean,
Yeah, in the Japanese, I believe that's played by a female, which is amazing. He would be the most fun. I really, really like high energy characters like that. And I've always wanted to play a leading male role. I've played male characters here and there, but it's always just a couple one-liners, or it's a little 5-year-old boy or something. I'd love the challenge of playing a teen boy for real.
So I really don't know a whole lot about voice acting. So I do know in Japan a lot of the shonen protagonists, the younger ones, the teenage ones, are played by female voice actors. Is that true in voice acting here in America too?
Yes and no. It depends really. It really just depends. I want to say it happens less if the male character is an actual teen, because we have a lot of higher voiced men who can handle that. So we don't see it too much. I'd say the big exception in dubs would be Luffy in One Piece is played by a woman.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, Colleen Clinkenbeard plays Luffy. And otherwise, if they are younger, say like 12 years old or younger, then sure. If it was a woman in Japanese, then we would do it have a woman in English as well. But if it's older, 16 years old and up, we would have a guy do it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's shift a little bit from the characters to the series a little bit more, and I'll ask you this question. Myalk 19 actually asked, which of the matches in season 1 was your favorite?
I actually have an answer.
Oh, good. Ready for this one?
Yeah, it is. Well, I know the episode number anyway. Episode 23, which is their match against Seijo. Is 23. Here's the thing. I didn't know that there were 25 episodes. In my brain, there were just going to be 24. So when I was at 23, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to be amazing. And then the next episode, we're going to know the end of it, which ended up being true. But then there was a 25th episode. I think 23 is the one where there's this huge rally and it's just back and forth. And they're at that deuce situation. And I'm like, I think that's what they get to at the end of 23. like Karasuno was fighting back and fighting back, and it was just so good. Like I'm like, what is going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And just when you thought you had seen it all, as far as what rallies could be like and how a team could score a point, suddenly something else happens and you see players on both sides doing things you hadn't seen yet, and I'm like, why, this is so compelling. It was really like holding my breath type excitement. I loved it. And as soon as it was over, I grabbed my phone and made a note, like, episode 23 is the best.
Talk about that. That was definitely an impressive match. I remember that one. What was your, and this was a question a few people had also, what was your favorite team besides Karasuno?
I have to pick one besides them. I'm not sure that I can give a qualified answer to that.
Yeah.
It would seem that I would want to answer Seijo, but it would just be because that's who I've seen the most of.
Yeah.
They spent the most time in their matches with them. They played with them earlier in the season, and then here in this tournament, you watch three games.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that that's a reason for them to be my favorite. So I don't know.
This is a good question to probably circle back around at the end of the series and ask. So
because other teams were fun to watch while they were there, but you only watched, that was one episode of an experience with this team or that team. So
absolutely.
I don't know yet.
To be continued, I guess. So what about one of our staff members was wondering what you thought of the decision by the third years, for Karasuno to stay on the team rather than what a lot of the third years do with the other teams, which is leave, and which is actually pretty traditional when it comes to sports anime, if not sports in Japan in general.
I was mostly just interested in that whole concept. Because it is, to my understanding, so different from what sports are like here in the States.
Right.
Here, it's, I think, so important for seniors to get to finish playing all the games and all the tournaments with their team. So it's odd to me that, like, you need to focus on your studies for the last semester of school. Whereas for us here in the States, you're focusing on getting into college your junior year of high school.
Right.
And your senior year is like, oh, which college am I going to go to? And enjoying playing with your teams or doing all your club stuff.
Or skipping class.
Yes, going to the beach. I lived in California, so yes, skipping class, going to the beach, all of that. So I'm like, this is so bizarre. Why would they do this to them? I think I was mostly mad that this is the system that they have to deal with. Like, how unfair is it that these guys finally have a team worth playing with, and now they can't if they follow what is expected of them. So in that regard, I'm like, heck yeah, keep playing. This system's dumb. You guys should play because it's not like they're going to go on to play volleyball in college or become professional volleyball players. So I'm like, how much can not focusing on your studies for one semester really change your entire life, when this would be your memories of your team? Maybe you make it, maybe you don't. Definitely keep playing, for sure.
Yeah. Another little shift here, but and you talked about this real briefly earlier, but Anime Girl 0302 asks, are you obsessed with the OPs yet? So what did you think about the opening, endings, the music in the series?
I really enjoyed the music. I like the cohesive nature of it. Sometimes OPs and EDs can just feel a little bit random. Like, here is pop star of the moment singing a song, and we're just going to slap it on the beginning or the end of this anime. But I feel like so far, all of the openings and closings have seemed to fit the show really well, matched with each other really well, matched the music in the rest of the show. And that helps so much. I think it shows a lot of attention and care to the project and the story as a whole being presented to the audience. It's not just a vehicle to sell singles for this pop artist or whatever. I liked it. I like the guitars. It has an interesting feel to it. Each song is different. And there's always that first episode where there's a new song and you're like, I don't know. I missed the old one. But then, by the
Yeah.
3 episodes in, you're jamming to it and you don't want to skip the opening or the closing. I don't think I ever did. Like, I really enjoy listening to them.
Well, that says a lot right there. You know what
They
I
put me in the right mood. Put me in the right mood to watch the show.
absolutely. You know what else I really liked was the I always forget what they're called, but the point halfway through an episode where they have
The bumpers. That's what I call them, is the bumpers, the
that's
midpoint.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love seeing the different types of serves from the different players and their
So
expressions, and it's so much fun. I always look forward to that, so that was
I
really
loved when the manager served.
oh
I
yeah,
think there's one of them shows her doing it. I'm like, yeah, look at her, she did it.
girl
It was
power,
great.
right? So did you learn anything about volleyball, and what position would you play
I
if
have
you
I
had
learned
athletic skill and weren't scared of
right.
playing volleyball?
We're not afraid of the ball. I did learn something, but I still don't know that I have my head entirely wrapped around the game and how it works. Like, if I had to explain it to you, I'd need to spend some time with Wikipedia first.
Right.
But I generally understand what the positions are and what they do, and like rules of play, I suppose. Though there was some interesting one that I'm like, what? I'm gonna have to look that up. It reminded me a little bit about like offsides and soccer and how that works. Like,
Oh,
I didn't know that that was the thing in volleyball, and I can't remember which episode they address it in, but it's near the end of the season. It has something to do with the last person who touched the ball,
mhm.
or which direction on your side of the net you can send the ball before you send it over. I'm like, God, why do they got to make it? Can't it just be hit the ball over there and you hit the ball over there? But I think that the show did a good job at teaching what you need to know and understand about volleyball as it progressed. But near the end of the season, that was getting to be a little frustrating because I wanted to just focus on the game as it
Right.
was getting more intense and the stakes
Mhm.
were higher. Like,
Mhm.
I really don't need a break to hear about what that move means.
Yeah,
but
takes you out of
that's
it a little
okay.
bit.
Maybe that'll a little bit. But otherwise, I recognize the technique, what they were doing in the
Mhm.
storytelling. Like, let's have the knowledgeable coach talk to the less knowledgeable teacher about what is happening, and then the
Mhm.
audience therefore will learn about the game. Like, I see you, I see what you're doing, anime. And I appreciate it. So did I learn something about volleyball? Yes. Can I tell you what that is? Not yet.
Not that you need to, but
Yeah.
I one thing I didn't realize that there was a position of libero, Nisha Nio's position.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was, I mean, everything was pretty new to me, but that was like, wow, is that true? Is that really a position? And they switch out, and I thought that was really
Yeah.
interesting. So that was a little bit
Mhm.
different from, say, soccer or tennis, or something comparable.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, that's still something I don't entirely get. Like, within the rotation, there are
yeah,
some times when someone who's on the court comes off the court for a
right.
second, and then when it rotates again, then they go back in. I'm like,
Mhm.
why is that? And I suppose it has something to do with offense and defense, and I should look it up. I think I need some homework before I start
Right.
season 2.
Yeah, and somehow my fifth grade volleyball, like in PE, we didn't get to that part of we just went in a circle. So,
Exactly. They're like, here's how you serve, here's how to receive. That's about it. That's all you learned.
well, so you like Haikyuu, you're enjoying the volleyball aspect. You like sports anime in general. Are you a sports
Mhm.
fan in real life?
Was that a question from somebody,
That's
or
my
is that like
question,
new?
actually.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I
Um,
wanted to ask. And if you are, what's your favorite team? Let me guess. I'm gonna guess you are a football fan.
I am.
Yes.
Good guess. Good guess. Then that came from my time spent living in Spain.
Hmm.
Soccer or football uh, is huge there, and I fell in love with the culture
Hmm.
of the game. And when we moved back, we really missed it. And thankfully, Major League Soccer here was starting to take off.
Hmm.
And we do have a team in Dallas, though they aren't in Dallas proper. They're like north of Dallas. So we used to go to matches, but now we don't. Um, so we lived in Madrid. So our team is Real Madrid, and we do still follow them. And then my husband has been a long time Manchester City supporter.
Okay.
And you should just support the same team as your spouse if you want to have a happy house. So
That's what I keep telling my wife, but she won't get behind my Chicago Bears for American.
I'm not huge on American football. I don't
A Cowboys fan?
Nah, not really.
Okay.
I like football season. Like I like the time of year. I like the mood that it puts everybody in.
Yeah.
I like the game being on and like the
Mhm.
atmosphere
Mhm.
in the house. But I don't really sit down to watch it and be interested in what they're doing.
Mhm.
I've tried and I just it's not my thing. Not my thing.
That's all right. We'll forgive you for that.
Basketball's fun. Baseball is probably my favorite sport to go to. Like
Yes.
I grew up in San Diego with the Padres of all teams,
Mhm.
but the weather's so perfect in San
Mhm.
Diego, and there's nothing like going to a baseball game. And I would enjoy watching. And there are times in my life where I actually knew like all the players' names and what positions they played, and took a great interest in the game. And then it kind of fell away, but I still really enjoy baseball.
The Dallas area has a couple of sports that are supposed to be really great spectator sports, which are hockey and NASCAR. And I wonder if you've ever been to a hockey game or Texas Motor Speedway.
I have been to 1 or 2 Stars games.
Yeah.
My husband is a big sports fan,
Yeah. Okay.
huge sports fan. He would go to every hockey game if he could. I think I've been to 1 or 2. Oh, I've been to 1 Stars game, but I've been to other hockey games in different cities. Like when I get to travel for conventions, I went and saw a Red Wings game when I was in Detroit because I'm like that we were right next door. I'm
Yeah,
like we have to
do
go.
that.
That's so cool. Hockey's really fun to watch in person, but it's a little difficult to watch because the puck moves so quickly. It's hard to keep up with it, but the atmosphere in the arena is pretty electric. So yes, and we also have a good basketball team here, the Mavericks, and I have been to a Mavericks game. Also fun, lots of fun. I have not
met
been.
Mark Cuban as a celebrity out there. Have you had a chance to
I met him.
Cuban, the owner
I've not
of
met him though. My neighbor, she no longer lives here, but I used to have a neighbor that worked for him, was like his assistant or something.
Oh, that's
I know, right? I have not been to Texas Motor Speedway. I can say that race cars are probably the furthest down on my list of things I'm interested in.
Understandable. Well, I want to open it up now and ask you if there was anything else you wanted to talk about season 1, anything that really stuck out to you that was particularly interesting.
Check my notes.
Ah.
I made some notes. Let's see.
Whoops.
We talked about that Asahi thing. Yeah, so some stuff that stuck out. A lot of it was from further closer to the end of the season. I really loved seeing the growth between Kageyama and Hinata.
Yeah.
Just the two of them as a pair, and their teamwork and their friendship. And I was especially excited to see Hinata learning new skills. That like while he completely took to this idea of being the perfect decoy, he needed to learn how to do other things, and that Kageyama was the one pushing him to do that. And I'm like, thank goodness, because I'm like, how am I going to watch this for how many seasons? And this is the one thing that he does. So I'm glad, because I know that he really wants to be the best, and he has to be more well-rounded to do that. And I was happy, A, to see that happening, and B, to see that Kageyama, of all people, was like the catalyst.
The writing is so good in this series. I love how you have a main character who has all this talent, but he's starting from ground zero, and he's got to build up, and it really lends itself to a long series that'll keep you engaged, keep you interested. And I think that was really good.
The kind of parallels between that like character with all the talent but so rough around the edges, Hinata, and then this genius of a player, Kageyama, who still has so much to learn and really has to unlearn bad habits in order to improve. That was really awesome. And watching him evolve in those last matches where he would need to support his teammates better. Oh gosh, it was so good. And I was so proud of him. He could have said, okay, I'm going to make a note of that, and next season or next tournament, I'm going to start doing that, or I'll start doing it in practice. He went right then. Like, he knew, like, if we want to win, if we want to advance, I have to do this now. There's no waiting. It's uncomfortable, but I'm going to do it. And it was so awkward for him, but his teammates appreciated the effort. And that was great. I thought that was so good. Oh,
You hit on something really special about the series, which is the relationships. And, for me, I really love series that have like a romantic aspect to it. It gets me engaged. But when you have a series that's a really well done sports anime, there's so much more to explore than that in relationships, and that teamwork dynamic, the friendship dynamic, the rivals. There's just so many ways to go, and it just makes the series so engaging.
For sure. Let's see. This is something where my phone, I don't know, auto-corrected, and it's hard for me to remember what the note actually is, but there's that moment where they need to change the momentum in the match, because it's like it's going too long with this the tension, and if we don't score the next point, what do we do situation. So how do we change the momentum? And so the coach sends in Yamaguchi, who's done like nothing
right.
And the only thing he has is that trick serve that he's been working on, and then he blows it. And I was so heartbroken for him, but it was like, what an amazing lesson. Like, even though he failed at the serve, he still accomplished the goal of changing the momentum. Like, whoa, you got to sit back and chew on that. I think that's another thing that happens a lot in our life, where we come up against something, and it doesn't even have to be like a massive life-changing event or crisis, but just something, and we attempt whatever to achieve a certain thing, and maybe we fail at the task, but somehow still manage to get things moving. Like, we moved, we didn't not try. And I think that's important.
Yeah, we think about failure as taking a step back, and sometimes it is, but sometimes failure is actually a step forward, right? Or a step deeper, or,
Yeah, and I think that was the lesson to be learned there, that I can't quite understand my notes, but for Yamaguchi as a player, it was important for him to feel what it is like to fail and to act. It says something about the chance to feel these regrets and this like hopelessness and helplessness will make him stronger. Like, if you hadn't put him in this moment, how long would he just hang out on the bench? But now he's motivated, I guess, to get better. And because he's like crying, and he is determined to get back out on the court at some point. Whereas before, he may have just been happy to be there, supporting everybody. I'll play at practice, whatever. I thought that was really cool. And one thing that I got from the Seijo coach, even though the coach over there hardly talks to the team, the players all talk to each other, which I think is really neat. But he did tell them at one point, when it was getting really hairy, no matter how difficult it gets, don't forget to think and communicate. I'm like, whoa, life lessons, write that one down. So often we get in over our heads in certain things, and we don't think, we just act, and we don't talk to the people that we're involved with, whether it's in a relationship or a work situation. We just do and expect everyone to deal with what we're doing, and they'll figure it out. It's like, well, you're not going to get very far if you do that. Like, you're on a team, you have to communicate. I thought that was well said, coach.
Isn't it weird how that's one of those things where as you get older, the communication sometimes gets worse. You think you would mature and understand, no, we got to talk to each other, right? And I wonder if it's, maybe as we get busier, we get lazier with that aspect, or it's something that's maybe it's not so quantifiable, so we kind of deprioritize communication and teamwork, but it's like the most important thing, but maybe as a teenager, you still have that sense of wonder and that willingness to want to do some of that, because I feel like it's a little bit more of a struggle now to make sure I'm communicate with my employees, my staff, my family, really put an effort towards that, because it is so meaningful and important. So anyway.
Well, that's the end of my notes. So,
Okay,
but
well,
I
let me.
really, but now I'm like, oh wait, I remembered something.
Oh,
It was so cool, and cool is a dumb word for it. I was very captivated in the last episode,
mhm.
watching Kageyama and Hinata deal with the loss, like grieving the loss of the tournament was fascinating to see how each of them dealt with it. And then when they go to the gym and just like scream and yell and hit balls and get out all this energy until they're exhausted, I'm like, wow, I was not expecting to see something like that. I've seen enough sports anime where it's like, oh, they lose and everybody's mad about it, and maybe they like, punch a wall and then whatever. Um, and I think I was actually crying along with the team when they go to eat after they lose.
Oh, yeah, that was a great moment.
Oh man.
Mm,
Oh gosh. And when it showed, I think probably Hinata, the first one, crying, and I'm like, oh, and then it opens it up and you see every single one of
mhm,
them is
mhm,
crying into their food while they eat. I'm like, this is too much. And my heart was broken for them.
mhm,
Um, but it was so relatable. What so beautiful, really beautiful.
mhm.
Because I wondered as it was going, as the tournament was happening, like, how is this gonna go? Do they win, and then like the next season you pick up partway through the tournament, or do they lose? But then I was thinking, what does that mean for the third years? Because I didn't know that there's this other possible tournament. Like if they lose, then it's all over for those guys. And why did I get to meet them if they're not going to be around next season?
Mhm, mhm,
So I didn't know where it could go. And
mhm,
then when they did lose, they still made something of it for another episode and a half. It
mhm.
was really spectacular, like so well done. Really,
Haikyuu is such a good series, so much fun, and has such unique depth to it, and I think that's what makes it really special. And so I do want to end on one last question that a few people asked, which is, are you going to watch season two?
absolutely. I cannot wait. I think I had just been waiting to start it until we had this interview, so I wouldn't get anything confused.
Moving on
But
now.
yes, I'm gonna. This interview ends. I'm gonna watch it right now.
Right. All right. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it because your followers voted, and we had to. I'm glad that they picked one that not only was one that they enjoyed, obviously, but one that you're really enjoying a lot. So it worked out really nicely. And thank you so much for joining me and joining Beneath the Tangles and helping us out with this. It's been so much fun talking to you about Haikyuu. We don't get to just talk about anime a lot with folks and especially with people in the industry. I mean, you're knee deep in it, so I'm glad that you're having a chance to just enjoy something instead of acting in it.
Thanks. I've loved it. So let's keep it up.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, Caitlin. And keep watching Haikyuu. And please follow us on Beneath the Tangles. We appreciate it. And of course, follow Caitlin. She's, of course, wonderful at everything she does. And she is a great Twitter and Instagram follow. And you get to see her puppies. And that's probably the best thing of all. So, all right. We'll see y'all.